I thought I was just helping my best friend's mom fix something in her garage. She was older, confident, impossible to read. But when she looked at me and said, "If you leave now, you'll regret it," I didn't walk away. I still hear her voice sometimes, months later. That line, it changed everything. You ever have a moment you can't tell anyone about? Not because it's wrong, but because it meant too much. That was the night I stopped pretending I didn't feel it. "If you leave now, you'll regret it." That's what she said, calm, steady. But something behind her voice made the air feel heavier. And even though I could have just walked out, I didn't. It started earlier that day. I was at her house because my best friend, Daniel, had asked me to drop off his toolbox. He'd gone out of town for work, and his mom, Mrs. Hart, said I could leave it by the porch. But when I pulled up, she was outside, crouched near the carport, sleeves rolled up, hair pinned back but loose strands falling against her cheek. She was trying to fix a loose panel near the garage door. There was something disarming about seeing her like that. Not the polished, composed woman I'd seen at Daniel's birthday or barbecues, but tired, focused, a little messy. Human. "Need help?" I'd asked, trying not to sound too eager. She'd looked up, squinting against the light. "You again. Delivery boy duties." I lifted the toolbox. "Your son's orders." Her mouth curved into a faint smile. "Then I guess you're already in the right line of work." The joke wasn't sharp, but her tone was dry, teasing, but tired underneath, like she was used to keeping people at arm's length. Still, she let me stay. I spent the next half hour helping her secure the panel, holding the flashlight while she handled the drill. The smell of dust and metal filled the air. She worked quietly, efficiently, and every so often, I'd glance at her hands. Steady, capable, but with faint tremors when she tightened the screws. "You okay?" I asked once when she paused. She didn't look at me. "Yeah, just too much coffee, not enough sleep." I wanted to ask why, but something about the way she said it made me stop. When the job was done, she insisted on making coffee. Said it was the least she could do. I followed her inside. The house was quiet, too quiet, the kind that echoes when you talk. There were family pictures on the wall. Daniel as a kid, her and her husband, though the frames with him seemed older, dustier, like they hadn't been moved in years. She poured 2 mugs, black, and sat across from me at the small kitchen table. The steam curled between us like fog. "So, what's your plan?" she asked. "For today?" "No. For life." Caught me off guard. "I don't know. Trying to figure it out, I guess." She gave a small nod, looking down into her cup. "You've got time for that." Then quieter. "Some of us ran out before we knew what we wanted." There was a pause, a long one, the kind that makes you notice small things. The clock ticking, her hand resting near the handle of the mug, the way her eyes softened when she wasn't thinking about being strong. "Mrs. Hart, call me Evelyn," she said quickly, cutting me off. Then, realizing, she laughed. "Sorry. Force of habit." I smiled, but something in me shifted. It felt strange. The sound of her name, how personal it suddenly made everything. She stood up then, as if catching herself in a moment she hadn't meant to show. "I should get back to work, right?" I rose too, my chair scraping lightly against the tile. "Thanks for the coffee." At the door, I turned to leave, but she stopped me with that one line. Quiet, almost to herself. "If you leave now, you'll regret it." I froze, half turned toward her. She didn't look at me, just stared at the floor, like she wasn't sure she'd spoken aloud. And I don't know what made me stay, politeness, curiosity, or something else entirely. But I did. That night, I kept replaying her voice in my head, like I missed something, or maybe wanted something. The next time I saw her, it wasn't planned. I'd stopped by to borrow a wrench from Daniel's garage, but she was there, again. Kneeling beside the same car, her hair tied loosely this time, an old sweatshirt hanging off one shoulder. She looked up when I called out, brushing dust from her hands. You really like fixing things, huh? I joked. Only the ones that can still be fixed, she said, half smiling, half not. Something about her tone made me quiet. I walked over, crouched beside her, pretending to check the tire pressure just to feel less useless. She didn't stop me. We worked side by side for a while, the silence stretching comfortably between the sound of tools and the faint hum of a radio inside the house. Every now and then, I caught her glancing at me. Not long enough to call it staring, but long enough to feel it. When I asked if she needed anything, she shook her head. I've needed a lot of things, she said softly. But not right now. There was weight in that, years, maybe decades, and I didn't know what to say back. So instead, I noticed things. The tiny scar on her wrist, the way her laugh caught when she tried to hide it, the faint smudge of grease she forgot to wipe from her cheek, and the way she always looked like she was holding herself together, even when she didn't have to. When we finally finished, she offered water instead of coffee this time. We sat on the back steps, the late afternoon sun cutting through the trees. It wasn't awkward, just quiet. You always this serious? She asked suddenly, glancing sideways. Only when I'm trying not to say something stupid. That made her laugh. A small, genuine sound, but it faded quickly. You remind me of someone, she said after a while. Someone who used to listen like that. I wanted to ask who, but her eyes had drifted somewhere else. Far away, like she'd left the moment behind. A bird fluttered across the fence. The radio from the kitchen switched to an old song, something from before I was born. And for a moment she looked younger, not by age but by softness. I caught myself staring. She noticed. Don't look at me like that, she said quietly. Like what? Like you see something you shouldn't. Her voice wasn't angry. It trembled, not with fear, but with something closer to recognition. Before I could answer, her phone buzzed on the step beside us. She checked the screen, her face tightening. Work call? She murmured, standing up. I nodded, unsure what to do with the air suddenly left between us. She hesitated before going inside, her hand on the doorframe. Then she looked back once, eyes soft but unreadable. She looked at me like she wanted to say something, but didn't, and that silence felt louder than words. It rained that evening, the kind of rain that blurred everything, windows, thoughts, time. Daniel had texted me, saying his mom's Wi-Fi was out again. I told him I'd swing by to check it, even though I knew she could have called the company herself. Maybe I just wanted an excuse. Maybe she did too. When I arrived, she was standing by the window, watching the storm. The lights inside were dim, the room glowing softly with the reflection of streetlights on wet glass. You came in this weather? She asked, surprised. You said your internet was down. Can't let you suffer without Netflix, I said, half joking. That earned a smile. Brave of you to assume I watch anything these days. Her voice was softer tonight, less guarded. Maybe it was the rain, or maybe she was just tired of holding things in. I got to work on the router near the corner of the room. She hovered nearby, her presence quiet but heavy, like the silence between two notes in a song. You really don't have to stay long, she said. Daniel must have told you enough about me to know I'm fine on my own. He told me you never ask for help, I replied. Guess that part's true. She looked at me for a long time and for the first time didn't look away. When I finished, I asked if she wanted me to test it on her laptop. She nodded and went to fetch it. Her footsteps on the wooden floor were slow, deliberate, like she was stalling. When she came back, I noticed her hands were trembling slightly as she handed me the laptop. Cold? I asked. She shook her head. Just nerves, I guess. That threw me off. Evelyn Hart didn't get nervous. I didn't say anything. I just sat with her on the couch, both of us staring at the blinking lights of the router. The rain was louder now, hitting the windows in uneven bursts. Do you ever wonder? She said suddenly, voice low. If we meet people at the wrong time? I turned toward her, but she didn't meet my eyes. She kept looking at the rain. Yeah, I said quietly. All the time. Something in the air shifted. A pulse, a heartbeat between us. I could feel it. The room felt smaller, warmer, like the walls were leaning in to listen. I don't know why, but my hand moved, just slightly, toward hers resting on the couch cushion. My fingers were inches away. Then her phone rang. The sound sliced through the quiet like glass breaking. She reached for it instantly, glancing at the screen. Her expression changed, not fear exactly, but a kind of old exhaustion. "It's him," she whispered, mostly to herself. "I should take this." I froze. Her ex-husband. I knew the name from Daniel. She stood up, turning her back to me, voice low but tight as she spoke into the phone. "No, I told you. I don't want to talk about this again." I looked down at my hand, still suspended midair. Ridiculous. Helpless. When she finally hung up, she stayed there for a while, facing the rain. I didn't say anything. Neither did she. Finally, without looking back, she said softly, "You should go now." My hand was halfway to hers when she said it. And I did. But only my body left that room. I tried not to go back. I told myself it was a line I wouldn't cross again. The late visits, the unspoken tension, the way her silence filled my head long after I left. But a week later, she called. Her voice was calm, almost casual. "Can you help me with something in the attic?" I said yes before she finished asking. When I arrived, the air between us felt different. Lighter on the surface, heavier underneath. She led me upstairs, holding a small flashlight that trembled slightly in her hand. Dust floated in the beam like faint ghosts of old memories. Boxes, old photo albums. Time stacked neatly and forgotten. She pointed at a box marked Daniel School Years. "Can you bring that one down? I've been meaning to sort through it." I nodded, but as I lifted it, a smaller box beneath slid open. Letters, framed photos, little pieces of a life she'd quietly folded away. One photo fell face down on the floor. When I turned it over, I froze. It was her years younger. Laughing, wind in her hair, her arm around a man who wasn't Daniel's father. She stepped closer, seeing what I was holding. Her hand brushed mine as she reached for it. "That was a long time ago," she said quietly. "Someone important?" I asked before I could stop myself. She exhaled. "Once. Until I realized I was more in love with what he made me feel than who he was." Her eyes met mine, steady, searching. "Do you ever do that? Confuse the two?" I swallowed hard. "Maybe I'm doing that right now." The words slipped out before I could catch them. They hung in the air, fragile, real. She didn't move, didn't breathe. Just stood there, watching me like she was waiting for me to take them back. But I didn't. Instead, I stepped closer. Not enough to touch, but close enough that I could see the faint pulse at her throat, the tremor in her breath. "What are we doing?" she whispered finally. Her voice cracked on the last word, like it carried too much meaning. "I don't know," I said honestly. "I just know I can't seem to stop being here." We stood like that, two people caught between the truth and what we wished it wasn't. The silence that followed wasn't empty. It was full of everything we didn't say, everything we shouldn't. Then she turned away, slowly, and sat on one of the old boxes. The flashlight beam trembled again, catching the edge of her face. "You should go," she said, barely above a whisper, "before this becomes something we can't explain." I wanted to argue, to tell her it already was. But I didn't. I just stood there, memorizing the way she looked in that half-light. Strong, scared, beautiful in a way that hurt. She didn't say anything else. Just looked at me. Like she was already mourning something we never even had. I didn't see her for a while after that night in the attic. Maybe she meant it that way. Maybe I did too. But some things don't stay buried, not memories, not feelings. They wait, quietly, until something small brings them back. For me, it was a voicemail. Daniel had asked me to drop by and check his mom's front door lock. It had been sticking. She wasn't home, but her phone was on the counter, still lit up with a missed call. Out of habit, I tapped the screen to silence it. That's when I saw it. Voicemail 1 new. I shouldn't have listened, but the first few seconds played automatically. Her voice, shaky, quiet. Hey, I just wanted to say thank you for being kind. I know I make things difficult. Then silence. A breath. I miss how easy it was to talk to you. The message ended there. I stood in her kitchen for a long time, the hum of the fridge suddenly too loud. When she finally came home, she froze seeing me there. "Oh, I didn't think you'd still be here," she said, setting down her purse. "I fixed the lock," I said quietly. "And I heard your voicemail." Her eyes widened. "You what?" "I didn't mean to. It just started playing." She closed her eyes, shoulders tightening. "Of course it did." Then softer. "So now you know. I wanted to say something, anything, but the words tangled. Why didn't you just say it to me?" "Because," she said, looking up, eyes glistening, "every time you're near me, I forget how to act like an adult." That silence after her words was heavier than anything she'd ever said before. Her defenses, the teasing, the distance, gone. "I didn't mean to make things harder," I said, my voice barely steady. She shook her head. "You didn't. You just reminded me of something I thought I'd lost. The way it feels when someone looks at you like you still have a story left to live." She turned away, wiping a hand across her cheek, almost angry at herself for crying. "I shouldn't feel this," she whispered. "But I do." Something in me broke quietly, not from joy, but from understanding. This wasn't a movie. It wasn't some fantasy. It was two people caught between timing and truth. I stepped closer, but I didn't touch her. Not yet. She looked at me, really looked at me, and something in her face changed. The fear softened, the lines of tension loosened. She took a breath like she hadn't allowed herself to in years. And for the first time, she looked at me without fear. The night after that, it rained again, softer this time, like the world was breathing slower. I told myself not to go. I even made it to my car, keys in hand. But then I remembered the way she'd looked at me yesterday. Not afraid, not guarded. Just there. Real. And I went. When she opened the door, she didn't look surprised. Almost like she knew I'd come. Her hair was loose, her sweater oversized, the faint scent of rain drifting in with her. "You shouldn't be here," she said. "I know." Neither of us moved. The house was dim except for the kitchen light. She walked back inside, and I followed without asking. The clock on the wall ticked between us. "I didn't plan any of this," she said finally, hands wrapped around a cup of tea. "You know that, right?" "I didn't either." She gave a quiet laugh, the kind that almost sounds like a sigh. "We keep saying we didn't mean to, but we keep finding our way back." I wanted to say something, but the words wouldn't come. So I just looked at her, the curve of her hand around the cup, the faint tiredness beneath her eyes, the calm that came from someone who'd spent a lifetime holding things in. She met my gaze. "What happens if we stop pretending this is nothing?" The question hit harder than I expected. "I don't know," I said. "Maybe it gets harder. Maybe it doesn't." Her fingers tightened slightly around the cup, then relaxed. She exhaled. "I'm too old to play guessing games." "Then don't," I said softly. "Just be here." She looked at me for a long moment, searching, weighing something. Then she set the cup down, and the smallest tremor passed through her hand. "I don't know how to do this," she whispered. "You don't have to." She closed her eyes for a second. When she opened them, the guard she'd always worn, that invisible wall, wasn't there anymore. I didn't move closer. She did. Just one small step, enough for our hands to meet halfway on the counter between us. Her fingers brushed mine, hesitant, questioning, then stayed. No words, no declarations, just that quiet moment where everything finally stopped running. We stood there, listening to the rain against the window. It wasn't passion, not even relief, it was something gentler. Two people finding a still point in the noise. Her voice was barely a whisper. You know this can't last. I know. But neither of us let go. Time seemed to stretch, not forward, not back. Just now. And for the first time, it didn't feel wrong. It just felt inevitable. She didn't say she loved me, but she let her guard down. And that was louder than any I love you ever could be. It's strange how quiet endings can feel. No arguments. No promises. Just silence, the kind that stays soft even after everything else has gone still. That morning, the rain had finally stopped. The house looked brighter, calmer. She was sitting by the window with a blanket around her shoulders, a half-finished cup of tea beside her. Neither of us spoke for a long time. We didn't need to. There was something fragile in the air, like we both knew the moment was too real to last. When I finally stood to leave, she didn't stop me. She just looked at me the way she always did when she didn't want to show what she was feeling. Chin slightly tilted up, eyes too steady to be calm. I don't regret it, I said quietly. She smiled. A small, tired, beautiful smile. Good. Because I don't either. And that was it. No grand goodbye. No scene. Just two people who had finally said everything they needed to without saying it out loud. It's been months since then. Daniel never knew. No one did. Sometimes I wonder if I imagined the whole thing. The looks, the late nights, the quiet spaces that felt like something sacred. But then I hear her voice in my head again. If you leave now, you'll regret it. And I realize she wasn't talking about that night. Not really. She was talking about life. About moments you can't rewind. About staying when something inside you tells you to run. I've thought a lot about her since then. Not as my best friend's mom. Not as the woman who taught me what restraint feels like. But as someone who reminded me what it means to see another person fully. She once said she'd run out of time before she knew what she wanted. I think maybe, for a moment, we both found it. Not love exactly, something quieter. Something truer. I still pass by her street sometimes. I don't stop. I don't text. But when I see the light on in her window, I smile. Because I know she's okay. And because some connections don't need to last forever to mean something. I didn't just fall for an older woman. I fell into something rare. Something true. And I hope, if you're listening, you find something like that too. If this story made you feel something, let me know in the comments. Would you want more stories like this?